I first heard about body neutrality a year or two ago, but I didn't really give it much thought. Recently though, this TikTok came up on my page. Okay, so I just checked and the TikTok got deleted, so basically there was a comment that told someone to love their big arms because they're beautiful. And the TikTok creator replied saying, "No, stop telling me my big arms are beautiful. I don't want to love them only once they're beautiful. I'm just going to accept them rather than force myself to love them." This piqued my interest and I watched some other videos on body positivity versus body neutrality. There seems to be a majority consensus that body neutrality is a much better alternative than body positivity. You can watch these videos for more info, but essentially, body positivity is criticized for becoming co-opted by corporations and skinny to medium-sized bodies, and most importantly, for still prioritizing beauty. Body positivity says that being beautiful is the reason why your body deserves love, which promotes an unattainable form of self-love and toxic positivity. Body neutrality, on the other hand, shifts the attention from appearance to function. It preaches respect for your body in the way it allows you to move and experience life. It's about accepting your body as a body. Your stomach is not beautiful or ugly. It is simply a body part that digests food for you, which is pretty great. Your body hair is not beautiful or ugly. It's just something that naturally grows on you. Body neutrality adopts a neutral stance on beauty. Hearing all this, I was like, yes, that makes sense. But let's critique this because I'm an insufferable video essayist. I started wondering whether body neutrality is realistic or practical for everyone. Like me, for example. I still care about looking hot. Part 1, I'm a narcissist. No, I'm joking. That section comes later. Just to be clear, I know body neutrality supporters exist on a spectrum, just as with any other movement. Some people view body neutrality as being completely neutral to body image. This means avoiding mirrors as much as possible, wearing loose clothing so that you become less conscious of how your body looks.
By choosing clothes that didn't nip and tuck, by not constantly trying to emphasize the smallest part of myself, I found that I was able to just move through the world without thinking about my body, which is huge for my mental health. Plus, these clothes allow for fluctuations in the size of my body, so I never feel uncomfortable after a big meal, and gaining or losing a couple of pounds doesn't make it feel like I have nothing to wear.
And just thinking about body image as little as possible. Other less radical forms of body neutrality just preach minimizing the impact insecurities have on you by recognizing that your fundamental value comes from outside your physical body. You will of course dislike your body on some days, they say, but the important part is to be able to address it with a little annoyance and then move on. I honestly don't know if I would call this second type body neutrality. I think the name is a little misleading, but I digress. This video is going to focus primarily on the first, more radical way that body neutrality has been presented. Now, since body neutrality focuses on bodies as an instrument rather than an ornament,
I think body positivity, the general conversation was still centered around our bodies as being more of an ornament rather than an instrument.
My body is an instrument, not an ornament.
Can it effectively address thoughts about body image that will inevitably exist? And I say inevitably because 1, media that capitalizes off of body image and constantly forces displays of bodies onto our screens isn't going anywhere. 2, even if capitalism and media suddenly disappeared and we were back to the good old times with not a cell phone in sight, being self-conscious will sadly remain a part of human nature. If you didn't know, then hi, I'm oliSUNvia and I like existentialist philosophy. The existentialist philosopher Sartre talks about the power of being looked at by others. The experience of being looked at is to see yourself through another person's consciousness, and it makes you aware of how you are perceived. When seen through the eyes of others, we can't help but feel that it verifies who we are, and even help define who we are. As subjects of unlimited freedom, we are perpetually insecure and unsettled about ourselves. If there is no God, if I have no predetermined purpose, who the heck am I and why do I matter? How much do I matter? But others provide an escape from this uncomfortable position. They can tell us the value and meaning of our existence for us. For example, in Sartre's play No Exit, the character Estelle has no mirror, and so she decides to use another character called Inez to understand what she looks like. She uses Inez's eyes and judgment as a replacement for a mirror.
I feel so odd. Odd. Don't you ever? It's when I can't see myself, I begin to wonder if I really exist.
Let me be your glass.
Estelle determines how she looks and feels about her appearance based off of Inez's reactions and words.
Oh, I'm there. Oh, but so tiny. I can't see myself properly.
But I can. All of you. Now, ask me questions. I shall be as candid as any looking glass. Follow the line of your lips. Now, no. Let me guide you.
Just because corporations stop selling you a beauty standard doesn't mean you'll stop living among judgment and comparison. So I was ready to start researching. I opened my handy-dandy Google Scholar and typed in body neutrality. You know the research is bare when 4 of the search results on the first page are citations rather than the actual articles. The first result was also straight up an infographic, which, while good at summarizing, wasn't a goldmine for detail or research. So for this video, I decided to interview some cool people and see what they had to say about this.
My name's Matthew. I'm 21 years old. I currently live in New York because I'm a full-time model.
My name is Ro Ramden. It's short for Rose. I'm 20. I'm from Seattle. I'm trans. I'm a trans, non-binary trans femme or trans woman. I don't really care which one people refer to me as or which one people perceive me as. I'm a YouTuber. I'm an influencer.
So I'm Summer. What I really do for work is like social media content creation, especially on like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, doing short form content. I use this as an opportunity for me to be comfortable with myself, and I started to share my story as a trans woman, and that really resonated.
My name is Ru Yi, and I am non-binary. I'm a signed model, I'm a writer, and currently I'm doing some styling work.
My name is LJ. I go by they, them. 21 years old. Currently, for creative stuff, I am modeling, creative directing, and hairstyling.
I reached out to a lot of other people, including plus-size and disabled figures online, but sadly replies were sparse. It's okay, Natalie's too busy for me, it's whatever. Maybe the high gorge opening was a little cringe. But I was interested in listening to people who often have more complicated relationships with their body image. These were people like models, whose job literally requires them to fixate on their body image. People who experience gender dysphoria and struggle between their physical appearance and its link to identity. Physically disabled persons whose actions are limited by their body. Sadly, I did not get any interviewees in this last group, but I wish I did. Now, of course, keep in mind that the people I chatted with are not representative of everyone, but they nonetheless provide some perspective to the discussion that I would not be able to. Before we get into it, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning or wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. It's a great way to start new hobbies or just focus on self-care. I love the way plants look and I love the atmosphere they bring to a room, but I've never trusted myself to grow a plant properly, so I started taking this indoor gardening class. The instructor is really great, and I think it's so cute and wholesome how we can share pictures of our plants like a little plant community. Here's my little guy, which I'm continuing to nurture. Maybe I'll become a plant mom one day. There's also a class on YouTube scripts and editing, which I get a lot of questions about, so there's a resource for ya. Use the link in the description box to get a 1-month free trial and start exploring.
I don't really ever feel beautiful. I'm also not interested in feeling beautiful. I just like feeling like myself, which is normally when I'm lying in my boyfriend's arms. I'm not interested in beauty terribly. I like fashion and makeup, and I like playing with colours, and I used to paint, and so I think I find that quite fun. But I never really feel beautiful. I prefer to feel funny or smart or happy.
The people I interviewed all had to and continue to have to think about body image on a frequent basis. For models, it's because it's literally part of their job.
the industry is, at the end of the day, just based on what you look like. So that ties into the amount of work you're getting. So it's not like when you're not getting work, your mind automatically goes to, oh, I look like shit right now. Like, I do not look good. And that definitely plays with your perception of yourself, and definitely preys on insecurities that were small before but grow bigger as you work more.
I have heard stories of people who have been in the modeling industry where they have literally had to be hospitalized because their agency has asked them to lose an unhealthy amount of weight in an unhealthy amount of time, which is completely unrealistic. They don't have your health in mind. All they have in mind is money and image.
Modeling is what's called aesthetic labor because the relation between work and body is so wound up together that it even frames how you live and act outside of work hours. In an interview with a Prada model, he talked about how he wanted to shift from high fashion to commercial fashion, and as a result, needed to change his body. He said he needed to move away from a, quote, heroine androgynous look to a more masculine heterosexual look. The way he thinks about food is always linked to how it reflects on his body appearance. Quote, people always think that fruit is good for losing weight, or to eat it if you want to stay skinny. But it is not that simple. Bananas are fruit, but that is something that you actually shouldn't eat that much. Watermelon is the best thing to eat, and after that, apples. Anyway, eating fruit after 15 o'clock in the afternoon is not good for you, because the body doesn't know what to do with all that sugar at that late time of the day. So you must eat fruit. It's good, yes, but only during the beginning of the day. For non-binary and trans people, how their body looks is a part of gender expression and can affect whether they feel like they're in the right body.
I experienced dysphoria on set a couple times when I was styled in very hyper feminine ways, when parts of my body that I knew were going to be perceived as very, very feminine to audiences were put on display. I thought it was normal. Honestly, I thought it was like, every model feels this feeling of disgust when they're on set.
Almost all of the people I interviewed supported body neutrality, or at least was confident that body neutrality was better than body positivity.
Body neutrality, to me, it seems like not just one thing. To neutralize something is to have it balanced, and to have your entire identity balanced. It seems to me that that creates peace and harmony.
Always lean towards body neutrality because I know people who do focus on the appearance like so much, and it really toys with their head. It's almost like body positivity doesn't really allow you space to like process an insecurity, or it's like almost soul crushing in the way that it like overwhelms you with like this need for you to accept everything about your body as perfect.
Summer said that she's learned to approach her body image as taking care of her inner child, so that even on days where she doesn't particularly like her body, she's still caring and gentle to it.
How I look at my body is more just like some days I'll feel prettier and some days I just won't. And on days where I won't, I guess I've just learned to take care of my inner child better on days where I won't.
Similarly, Rue talked about body positivity as a radical romantic love, whereas body neutrality was a caring, patient love, like a mother. And that's what made it preferable.
I think by extension, what the body positivity and self-love has extended to is consumption. I'm going to take that bubble bath, and so I'm going to buy this bath bomb. I'm going to take care of my skin. So I have a 13-step routine that I'm going, all these products are lined up and they're so beautiful and they're very expensive. What self-love, body positivity tries to do is that it really focuses on like the highs, or there's like a lot of focus on the highs of like, I love myself so much. I'm going to romanticize like every bit of my life. I think that can be useful on some days, but on other days, like sometimes we feel like shit, sometimes we're in pain. I think of self-mothering, like is a word that's coming to me right now, in that if I were a mother to myself, how would I want me to feel?
But interestingly, the person who fit into conventional beauty standards the least was the most critical of body neutrality.
Viewing body neutrality in a vacuum without looking at desirability politics is a sort of, it is going to be conducive to certain conclusions. Body neutrality it seems like a good post state, but it does not seem like the solution to present problems. So myself as an, a plus size or whatever trans person who is, has non-white features and is not white, the solution to my problems are not the same solutions to those of a skinny white woman's problems, or a skinny white man's problems. Whereas body neutrality for them might be empowering because it allows them to maybe reject some aspect of sexualization or something like that. It's consistently uphill battle. I've been chubby since I was really young, and the trans stuff has not made it necessarily easier. I experience a lot of like body envy and stuff like that.
The experience of body image for trans people who pass is very different from those who don't pass.
I remember I was back in New York and I had this other trans friend who didn't pass, and when we hung out, it was like it was a very interesting experience in that, I don't know what an interesting experience, but it was a very kind of maybe daunting realization, because as we kind of hung out and we walked down the street, like the men would like snicker at her and could all, and would kind of, and I was just like, and that was her daily life. Whereas for me, I think I could just exist in any space and not feel like any attention pulled to me.
While Summer does pass and had an easy time doing so, Ro has had a harder time. She told me she's West Indian, plus size, and she doesn't automatically pass, which is a combination of undervalued groups in social beauty standards. Plus size is also not the traditional image of femininity, which certainly can't be helpful when trying to come to terms with one's gender identity. And so Ro's attitude toward body neutrality ends up being different.
So for body neutrality, I guess it's one of those things that I see as very well intentioned, and I definitely have felt positively about it in the past. But the more I sort of have thought about it over time, the more I've realized that neutrality in this specific case, especially in regards to like trans people and dysphoria, is kind of a privilege. Trans people don't have the ability to be neutral about their bodies all the time. So the idea that we can sort of move to this middle ground between love and hatred for our bodies easily, or even that it is an attainable goal for all people, I think is maybe misguided. I need to, before I sort of return to this baseline standard of just respecting my body and appreciating it for what it does, I need to find some sort of love and positivity in the body, because the rest of the world is very much is going to push values antithetical to those that create my being.
I think this explains why many trans people try to present as hyperfeminine or hypermasculine, or as Summer put it.
And I think in the trans community, kind of like the need to like slay or the need to like be very beautiful, like the kind of like Nikki Dragon or like Gigi Gorgeous kind of like hyper beautiful, very dolled up kind of aesthetic.
Being obviously recognized as one gender is helpful in stabilizing identity, but also even feeling safe in public. And for a lot of trans people, this is sought out through cosmetic surgery. A large part of how trans people become validated as part of a gender is if they physically look the part, which is inherently linked to the appearance of their body. Now, Summer did tell me about how some famous figures like Hunter Schafer has chosen not to tuck, and Dylan Mulvaney has spoken about normalizing the bulge.
Number one, you can stop wearing clothes that fit like this and just find looser fitting items. Number two, I can do a tuck, which is going to have to be a whole other video, but it's very painful and involved Or number three, I just normalize it and I wear clothes like this, and we all just normalize women having bulges sometimes, because we're coming up on bikini season, baby, and you might see a bulge or two. So normalize the bulge.
So perhaps there is a slow trend towards less focus on physical validation in the trans community. If you are trans, I would love to know if you see this happening as well, and if you think that this will one day become the norm. I do think, though, that there is still privilege behind body neutrality. The ability to not think about how your body looks is definitely easier for some than others. Just as how it's easier for some people to love their bodies than others. Even the more realistic goal of simply recognizing your worth outside your physical body can be hard, especially if you are, say, a trans person surrounded by people who basically only recognize your legitimacy based on how you look. In Chinese culture, it's not taboo at all for the first thing you say to someone to be about their weight. People will openly discuss how fat you look or how much weight you've lost all the time. And it's really hard to just be an individual that ignores all that when the environment you're situated in is not conducive to those neutral goals. In Rowan Ellis's video on acne representation, she talks about how she is someone who has had to struggle with serious cystic acne for years of her life. She says that skin neutrality is not going to be the solution for people like her, who are still negatively stereotyped by society regardless of her individual-focused efforts.
The question a lot of people are asking is, should we throw aside skin positivity and instead be aiming for skin neutrality? You know, I don't need to think of my skin as beautiful, I don't need to love my acne, I just need to not think about my skin at all, to feel neutral about it. Using concealer or foundation is absolutely about how other people see me, because we don't live in a world right now where me deciding my acne shouldn't matter will make a difference to the way I'm treated and perceived. But ultimately, I think that individual positivity or even neutrality doesn't actually help these socially embedded issues that we've talked about through this video. It doesn't solve the full range of problems that people with acne can face.
And her skin, this part of her body, tangibly affects her life in ways that people who just have mild acne struggle to understand. Now, even though LJ and Rue both stated that they are very comfortable in their own bodies, as non-binary people in the model industry, they have certain clauses such as no nudity, in part because revealing naked parts of themselves can cause discomfort in their relationship to gender.
I've set some rules for how I would like to be presented, and just some boundaries that I think are necessary for if I want to continue in this career in this industry without feeling like I'm sabotaging myself. So for example, I have no nudity in my book.
Sometimes being posed in heteronormative feminine ways or wearing clothing that is meant to highlight their biologically female parts also contributes to that feeling of discomfort.
Certain garments I'll wear or certain positions they'll want me to be in, it's a little out of range for me. I'm pretty open-minded and like to explore unknown areas that are kind of foreign to me.
I know if I do this for a friend, or if I'm just hanging out with a friend and I'm wearing an outfit that I know is perceived as a little bit feminine or whatever, they know who I am and they see me and they understand me. But it's very different when I'm being perceived, and I know I'm going to be perceived by a bunch of people who don't know me. The optics are very different in that case. And I think some of the disgust that I felt would be just in the middle of shooting, I would suddenly feel very, very disgusting. I would just want to go home and lie in my bed and not do anything.
The awareness of how our body looks cannot disappear. And I'm sure that in the model industry, it's impossible for that to happen. At least right now.
You always start when you're doing a casting doing small talk, but also they're not even looking you in the eyes. They're just looking down at you and you're like, okay, yeah, so this is weird. I feel like I'm in a zoo.
Try as we might, a truly neutral attitude towards our bodies is not always attainable. And I think this is in large because body neutrality is individual focused, just like body positivity. Yes, a lot of critiques against the model industry are valid. I agree that it's harmful how many models are still treated like commodities, and high fashion especially remains rooted in skinny, able-bodied standards. But we shouldn't put the burden on individuals to heal their relationship with their body. The problem is ultimately because of the systematic norms within fashion and modeling. Both body neutrality and body positivity focus on what you can do in regards to your own body. Screw society, you can love yourself, or you can change your mindset about what your body means. While you can make a broader statement by spreading the movement or inspire others by discussing how you apply it to your own body, it's almost like mindfulness mindfulness culture. Body neutrality has lots of mottos to tell yourself. Mindful rituals such as filming yourself and then repeating, I am a body, I am a body. But just as how people have criticized mindfulness culture for telling individuals to accept a lack of control over external circumstances and instead direct their efforts inward, body neutrality also doesn't seem able to spark radical systematic action outside of the individual. Body image still rests on a huge system of media and fatphobic fashion and unrepresentative film and corporations that want you to feel bad about yourself. It's like 99% of problems nowadays. Change is hard when the systems don't budge. And I'm not saying that a movement has to destroy the system in order to be valuable. In fact, I don't think many people are in a place to help others overcome their body image issues when they themselves are still in a long-lasting struggle with their own. And that's totally valid, that's totally okay. You got this. I guess I just want to point out that body neutrality is not this one hero that will save the day. I see more and more people associate anyone who supports body positivity as either being toxic or just behind the times. Didn't you hear? Body positivity is not progressive anymore, girl. But with such a deep-rooted, tangled mess of a problem that body image is, the best method is never going to be one set method. Honestly, can I be real for a second? Body neutrality has a lovely mantra. My body is an instrument and not an ornament. But sometimes I want to be an ornament. Sometimes I want my body to look beautiful and I want to care about the way it looks. Now, does this come from a privileged position? Yeah, it at least in some respect does. I know I'm not on the outskirts of beauty standards. I at least fit into the skinny, good skin mold, and I have a decent amount of self-confidence. But even when I wasn't popping off in the physical attractiveness realm and I was unbelievably insecure, I liked clothes, and I liked thinking about the way they would look on me as an artistic project. Like sometimes when I wear skirts with leg warmers, I think about how the proportions are not aesthetically ideal because I have shorter legs. And it has nothing to do with how I value myself as a person. This has nothing to do with my confidence. It's mostly an opinion from a fashion standpoint. Aesthetically, I think the clothes look better if there is more space between the skirt and the leg warmers. The way a piece of art can look better or worse depending on how you space the components in that art piece. I still want to think of my body as beautiful, maybe because I think that's a realistic goal for me, or maybe I prefer feeling positive over apathetic, or I just view fashion as an art, and I'm okay with kind of turning my body into an object for that artistic purpose, because it leaves me with a sense of fulfillment in other ways. Body neutrality demystifies the body and makes it more like a functional organism, but I don't want to completely erase its romantic aspects.
And I don't even know if body neutrality, don't think of it positively or negatively, is necessarily the best endpoint for us to want to arrive at. I think it's not a bad thing, but it strikes me as a little bit apathetic. But it feels as though it's like, oh, we've tried really hard to be happy about it. Now corporations are doing that, so maybe we just feel whatever about it. And I think in the long run, even after I've moved past body image, I would like people to feel good about their bodies and how they feel. I feel like when a lot of young, like new leftists get into the spaces, they sort of have this idea that like they've cracked the world wide open and now they know that everything is bullshit. So we might as well just like fuck off and do whatever. We might as well just go and run into the woods and get a cabin and live cottagecore and never think about beauty again. And it's like, the life is worth living. The world is worth being in. People are great.
And I want to reiterate that this is my relationship with clothes and body. This does not mean I think everyone should or does think this way. Now, all this doesn't mean body neutrality is bad or that it's off the table for everyone. It may very well be the best way to conceptualize your relationship to body image at the moment, given the options we have. Maybe it works best when combined with other methods, the way LJ seems to combine queerness, spirituality, and body neutrality.
Mainly through spirituality, through queerness, through fashion. All of those have taken a part in kind of where I'm at right now.
I do think body neutrality is probably more realistic than body positivity for the people that are most excluded by society's dominant perceptions of beauty, but it's just not an end-all be-all. What I do like about body neutrality as an intellectual movement is its recognition of how inextricably linked our bodies are to our perception and experience of the world. Merleau-Ponty is a phenomenologist who basically looks at how our subjective consciousness interacts with the world before any thinking, any rationalization starts to shape our conscious input. He says there is no perception or experience in which our body is not embedded in the world. And so we understand the world through our body, not as an object, but a set of possibilities. I know these headphones are close to me, for example, because I can easily reach out and grab it. When I answer the phone, I experience my body as a body that can say, "Hi, I would not like to give out my social security number today." Quote, "Here is Peter. I can speak to him or not. But if I lose my power of speech, Peter no longer exists for me as an interlocutor, sought after or rejected. What collapses is the whole field of possibilities. And so what is possible for our body shapes our experience of ourself and also the world. But I don't think the physical aspects of our body can ever be ignored in this regard. Whether we believe our bodies to be bigger or smaller, beautiful or not, too much this or too little that, will probably influence our perception of the world in ways that linger underneath our consciousness. I remember just feeling like being a smaller person meant that weightlifting was not in my body's set of possibilities. It was not possible for me to lift weights because that's what bigger, stronger people do. A trans person who does not easily pass may have a different set of possibilities in the world than a trans person who does pass, by virtue of the physical appearance of their bodies. And so I think it's great to focus on the actions and functional possibilities of the body. I agree that those are also what's important, but I don't think it's a concept that's totally separate from body image. Embodied ethics is a growing area of thought in fashion that examines how cultural and social representations of bodies affects what we subjectively think is possible for some bodies and not others. It points out that fashion education has long focused on how clothing looks, using descriptors such as line, shape, color, texture, silhouette, but there has been little attention paid to the way people will move in and experience the clothing as material, sensory, and tactile objects, not just visual objects. There is always going to be a link between this visual and experiential side, and recognizing that actually opens opportunities to be more sensitive towards the experience of bodies and clothing. I don't know. I'm kind of testing out ideas. I might disagree with this in a month or so, but there's some thoughts for now. I was on the podcast Safety Last, hosted by Stanley Chang, and he told me that the shift from body positivity to body neutrality reminded him of the artistic move from romanticism to realism. So shout out to him for pointing me in this direction. I think it is an interesting connection. Romanticism was an artistic movement that focused a lot on the ideal, the mythical, and emotions greater than life. Nature was portrayed with character, whether that be magical or wild. There were a lot of paintings about mythological figures or tragedy or great beauty, but nothing mundane. What came like a response to romanticism was realism, which was revolutionary at the time because they drew paintings of reality as it was. Realism moved away from paintings about idealized situations and beautiful people. Art had been traditionally thought of as a space for beauty and things larger than life, but realists wanted to show people and situations as they really are. They began to create paintings such as peasants working in fields with bored faces and mellow, drab colors. It was quite shocking back then because there was very little artistic attention given to the working class. In this way, realists saw a tie between art and social critique, and began representing the poor a lot more to bring the reality of their conditions into the artistic field. Realist literature also focused a lot more on concise language, matters of fact, rather than needless flowery language, and stories of marginalized groups in society. If we compare this to body image movements, body neutrality seems to be rejecting the idealistic, romantic perspective of body positivity. It wants to prioritize the body as a body body first, which is the objective reality separate from the social values we have constructed. And while body positivity is definitely trying to make a political statement about body image, body neutrality attempts it at an even more extreme level. Rather than saying, here's how you can still be beautiful, body neutrality is like, who cares about body image at all? We're bringing attention to the socio-political structure of body image itself. Now, art history isn't a linear timeline, but Impressionism came roughly after realism, and it focused on essence over detail, whereas realism tried to capture reality as it accurately looked. Impressionists were trying to express the vibe of a scenery, as though you had caught only a fleeting look at it. Impressionist paintings seem to be almost dreamlike, with their more blurred appearances. It would be interesting if after body neutrality, which, sorry for being pessimistic, but I think it will also get co-opted by corporations if it becomes the new popular body image movement, leads into a new form of thinking, where we do value the objective reality of the body as a body, but in a less strict manner? Or maybe body neutrality will in fact have really helped and allowed many people to worry less about their body image. I don't know, I can dream, can't I? Of a day in which body image issues are met with but a fleeting glance.
If we're approaching body neutrality through accepting how your body as how it functions and the things that it can do for you, we also need to think about how we are going to offer differently abled people their rights. How we're going to offer trans people their rights, and how we are able to afford that to them as people who are treating our own bodies and the bodies of other people with compassion.
I want to say thank you once again to all the people that agreed to do an interview with me and answer my questions. I would love to hear so many more perspectives on this in the comments, because body image is such like an individual experience and relationship. Thank you so much for watching. Let's keep talking, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye!